must admit, but I need something deeper than this.
Why is it that we are so invested in lives that are not our own? Lives that have nothing to do with us and are not affected by our choices. We read books and get more invested in the characters' futures than our own. Well, I know I do anyways, will laugh and cry when something good or bad happens in a book. We watch movies and are so invested in what happens in the characters' lives that we spend months before their release hyping ourselves up and are often disappointed when we finally do see it because they do not do what we wanted or expected them to. Our society is one that we are so invested in the media and others that we forget to worry about ourselves and our futures. We often forget that our time is limited. Like novels, our stories will one day run out of pages. Like novels, we will run out of words. One of my favorite novels, Looking for Alaska, is the story of Miles, or Pudge, and his journey in Alabama at Culver Creek boarding school. Miles, like each one of us, has a weird habit or passion. He memorizes famous last words. If you think about it, we all sort of have that habit, but in a different way. He remembers famous last words, while we remember specific quotes from people and the media around us that we base our lives on. Often these things are things like, live in the moment, or better to ask forgiveness than permission, but the words that stuck with me are a little different. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I just told you about Miles' story. Now I guess I should share some of mine. My name is Jantzee Beshear, and I was born in Springdale, Arkansas. My story started off like any other. I was a typical little girl with two parents and an older brother. When I was little, I was Daddy's little princess. He was my whole world. Anything that went wrong, he would fix it. He did my hair better than my mom because he had long hair and she didn't. He was the one that stayed up with me at night when I couldn't breathe so that my mom could try to get some sleep. My dad was one of the only two people, my mom the other of course, that never favored my brother over me. I was literally the stereotypical little girl who had her daddy wrapped around her finger, and I loved it. One day, that changed. In books, you never know what's going to happen next. The next page could contain a plot twist that would throw off your entire plan for how the book ends. When I was 4, I turned that page and got a plot twist that no one could have ever imagined. 6 days after my 4th birthday, my dad, my world, killed himself. And then there were 3. Now, I do not think it is necessary for me to tell you how he did it, but the fact of the matter is that just as books continue and have a next page, my life continued to go on. Now I'm going to give you a little summary of some of the chapters so we can get to the point of this. My mom got married to my stepdad, and he brought along his 2 kids. Things were a lot different. I was no longer Daddy's little girl, and I would never be again. Time moved on, and a few chapters later on the book that is my life, my family and I always worked hard to make things work because we all had different personalities, and there was issues with my distant family. All of a sudden, it was my 2nd year in junior high, and I was told that my family was going to move to California. I was overjoyed, while my brother not so much. He and my sister were both just finishing their sophomore year in high school, and he was dating a psychopath at the time and thought that they were in love. Roughly a month or so before we went to leave, that ended, and all of a sudden his attitude changed. Things were looking up. It is now freshman year at a new school, and I knew no one. Within the first day, I met the 4 girls that I would end up spending my high school career with. The days were spent laughing until our stomachs hurt and making the most of our first year in high school. At the end of freshman year, myself, along with Celeste, Caitlin, and Lauren, were all accepted into the Media Communications Academy, and then it was sophomore year. I knew I belonged to MCA, and they became my second family. Friendships grew stronger, new ones were made, and by this time, I began dating Jordan. Sophomore year was a blur now that I think about it. It was a typical high school year, full of arguments in private when everyone thought Jordan and I were the perfect couple. There was an adjustment going from normal classes to MCA classes, taking 3 classes with the same group of people, although things were good. Junior year, Jordan and I had broken up because he graduated, and I was focusing on myself and doing as much as I could to make the most out of my time in high school. Now we are at senior year. In English, we are given our typical senior visual essay project that every senior who goes through MCA gets. Throughout the process of all of us trying to figure out what story we want to tell, Janie tells us an insane amount of stories to help us figure out how to go about writing our own. The story that she told us is not mine to tell, but I will tell you what stuck with me from that story. She finished her story, and at the end she said, "I did not die too." Those words helped me to realize that I cannot control what happens to others, so I'm literally wasting my time, wasting the chapters of my life worrying about other people. We are wasting our own chapters when we worry about other people's pages. All underclassmen laugh and joke and say that they have senioritis since freshman year, but once you actually become a senior, you realize that it's actually a thing. We are all busy with jobs and school activities and just trying to make the most of the time that we have left, all while also applying for college and trying to figure out what the heck we want to do with the rest of our lives. Through all of this, though, we have made the best memories. Senior year is for getting our lives together and to reminisce over the crazy times that we have had. The memories of changing rooms smelling like paint, the sight of glitter, the hundreds of signs and props that we have made over the years for homecoming decorations, skits, and sports-rama. The memories of the lab smelling like burnt popcorn because we spent our entire sophomore year eating it and burning it in the microwave. And most of all, the thousands of pictures that we've captured to remember the days, though these are just the memories that we made in school. That doesn't count the memories that we made outside of school. The countless hours spent on homework or texting each other for last-minute homework assignments or summaries of books that we slept through in class. This doesn't count the many hours of Snapchatting or group outings just to be able to hang out. For me, these memories include the hundreds of times running to grab Taco Bell before practice or just hang out with some friends, the cold nights sitting on my driveway drinking burning hot chocolate with my best friend, just discussing absolutely anything and everything, the many trips to Dutch after school, which always ended up in a jam session in the car, the many times we dyed hair in my kitchen, always staining the counter or sink, causing my mom to get mad, but laugh about it later, the time that I dyed Slush shower blue because it is easier to shower to rinse the dye than rinse it in the sink. All of these times, though, just ended up to be pages and chapters in the book that is my life. Now, as I am sitting here looking at the upcoming chapters of my life, I realize a few things. In a few weeks, I will graduate from high school and my father cannot be there. Down the road, when I get married and have kids, he will never be able to meet his grandchildren. He was not there to see my brother graduate from the United States Naval Boot Camp. He was not there through my first real breakup or my first high school dance. These chapters are the sad ones, but they do not make my book, my life, sad too. There will always be a part of me that misses him, that is mad at him, and even hates him to a point, for not being there for all of these chapters, for all of these major life events. So what's the point? Why does my story have anything to do with books or characters in books? The point is that life goes on. The pages keep turning, and there will continuously be another chapter. We grow up and become totally different people, even if it is in just a year. Just because someone else's novel stops doesn't mean you need to stop reading your own. My dad ran out of chapters, but I did not. All of the little cliches that we base our lives on are other people's expectations of how we should live, while in reality, we should be writing our own. Often we have this idea that if everyone else doesn't know the greatness that we have done in our lives, then it doesn't matter, when that's not true. Now, the final chapter of my essay and the final chapter of my high school career, I am going to share a final quote from a well-known novel, The Fault in Our Stars. While talking about her favorite book, Hazel Grace Lancaster says, "Sometimes you read a book and it fills you with this weird evangelical zeal, and you become convinced that the shattered world will never be put back together unless and until all living humans read the book. We should all feel that way about our own lives."